This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Ben Davison. We're here at the MTK Performance Centre in Harlow. How are you, Ben? Been a while.
All good, thanks, mate. You?
We're trying to rattle through this interview, so that's what the nice prompt response from Mr. Davison there. But I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. Nice to see you. I was just talking
don't need your life story.
to Josh Taylor. And I think the last time I saw you was a couple of weeks before the Apponen Kong Song fight. Just a second, let me get you back in shot.
That long ago, yeah.
That was the last time I saw you. I brought myself down to this lovely gym. Obviously, a lot's happened since then, but we don't have time to go through all of it. So let's talk about Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez, undisputed super lightweight title fight. Massive fight for boxing. Yeah, I'm excited. How excited are you?
Yeah, of course. It's a brilliant fight, brilliant opportunity for both guys. And it's like one of those career-defining moments. So, yeah, really excited and excited for Josh.
How difficult a fight is Jose Ramirez for Josh Taylor? We've seen Josh kind of well matched throughout his career. He's taken on good fights at good times, at regular intervals throughout his career. I think the general consensus is that the Regis Prograis fight may have been kind of the one, or Regis Prograis may have been the biggest threat to him at 140 pounds. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I think it depends on the way that he goes about the fight. You know, Josh was able to manhandle Prograis. I think each fight brings their own, in terms of program, Ramirez obviously brings their own hurdles to overcome. I think that if Josh goes about this fight in the wrong way, it becomes a harder fight than the Prograis fight. I think if he goes about the fight in the right way, it potentially could be a showcase fight for Josh.
Now, I've just spoken to him. He said he's going to go to war and go in there, bite down. No, he didn't really say that. I was just seeing your reaction in your face. But how important is it for him to stick to a game plan in this fight? We all know Josh Taylor likes to fight on the inside. He's been in some fantastic fights. But how important is it that he decides when and where those pockets of action take place?
That's exactly it, exactly what you just said there, because when people go, oh, stick to a game plan, like, people think, oh, automatically you're on the back foot. It's a time and a place. And he needs to pick his moments correctly. And if he does that, like I said, I think there's definitely opportunities there for Josh to make this a showcase fight. He picks his moments wrong, then it becomes an extremely tough fight. So, you know, a fighter like Josh has got such a big toolkit. He needs to know when to pick certain tools for what types of job, and this is one of them fights where he needs to select his tools correctly, but at the right times.
I know you watch a lot of film on fighters. I know you do a lot of study. Without obviously divulging too many of the secrets that you've picked up from Jose Ramirez, what type of fighter is he, and what are you expecting from him on fight night?
Yeah, look, we know what he is. Everybody knows what he is. Take away anything that he does boxing-wise, anything tactical, anything like that. He's a strong physical guy that has a will to win, a God-fearing man, and those alone, and a tough guy, those alone bring their own challenges. So, like you said, obviously, he'll have certain tendencies and habits and skill sets that I'm not going to go into, because there'll be things there that we'll look to exploit. But there's definitely things there that I've seen that, like I've said, I wouldn't put it out there to say that this potentially could be a showcase fight for Josh if I didn't see it, you know. And myself and Lee Wiley as well has obviously done our research and believe that there is a chance for that and potential there for Josh to make it one of those fights, but he's just got to select his tools wisely and pick his moments.
I spoke to Josh about the fact that he's been not only well matched in his career, but he has been nice and busy, nice and active. Now, of course, the way of the world at the minute means that's not always available to a lot of fighters. He's only boxed less than a round since the Regis Prograis fight. Any concerns on your end for that?
No, because I fully believe that Josh is becoming a better fighter. I fully believe that. So while there might be a little bit of inactivity, his IQ is getting better. He's understanding himself more, understanding boxing more, he's watching more boxing. So while you might be physically inactive, he's had plenty of sparring, lots of sparring throughout. He's spent a lot of time in the gym. He's becoming a better fighter, and that's what's more important to me than anything. Inactivity becomes a problem when you're not in the gym, when you're not fully focused, when you know he's been in the gym as though he's had this date for a long time. So That's what's taken away the worry of any inactivity for me.
Make a good point there about kind of Josh studying boxing more and watching boxing. I've just come from the house. I walked in and he was watching Floyd Mayweather and he was sitting there and he was going through. How important is it for, stick to Josh, I was going to kind of make a general comment, but for somebody like Josh to, even though he is at the top of his game, right at the very top of the 140-pound division, to still try and take little bits and pieces from other fighters?
That's how you get better. That's how you get better. Michael Jordan said that his biggest asset, as good as he was, his biggest asset was that he was coachable. And when you're willing to take on more, how are you going to get better if you're not willing to take on information? So, Josh, get it recorded. Record it. Record it. Record it. Yeah, get started. Record it. You know, how are you going to get better if you're not going to take on any more information? So, you know, he's open to it. He's learning from it. The other day we sat down and watched the spar, and as we were sitting it down, I said to you earlier, I was saying, this is going to happen. That's about to happen. That's about to happen. I could see he was like, how did you know that? But because I can see, you know, there's certain patterns of certain fights and certain styles clashing, that these things are going to happen. When you do this, this is going to happen. When you give this look, the opponent's probably going to do this. And it's just understanding why. Why did the opponent do that when you shaped up like this? When you positioned yourself like this? So yeah, I was about to delve into a little bit more, but I'm not going to.
That's okay. For yourself, I mean, you've been involved even in a very short career officially as a trainer. I know you've been around the sport for a number of years. You've been involved in some big fights. Now, this is a big fight as well. What kind of extra impetus, if any, does that give you as a trainer, or is just a fight?
Yeah, fight's a fight. Like, I've always said this, and think, you know, it's easy to say, and it's such a cliche thing, but it is for me. You know, like, my passion comes from helping them achieve their goals and their potentials. And like I've said this so many times, there's Leo in there, like his goal is to win a Southern Area title. That fight will mean as much to me as this undisputed fight. And that's not to play down this undisputed fight. This undisputed fight means as much to me as Tyson Wilder 1 or any other big fight. So, yeah, they all mean just as much, do you know what I mean? Because it's each individual's, you know, every fight is each person's world title fight. So, you know, there is no, if we lose this one, like, no, there is no losing.
You're an unbeaten trainer. Are you an unbeaten trainer?
No, I had Tom
Little, that was it. Sorry, Tom.
He lost his first fight at me, but then we went on a winning streak where he won 3 and stopped 2 of his opponents. I haven't lost one since then, which was, I think it was 2015. Or something like that, anyway.
It's a pretty good record. It was very impressive. With regards to yourself as a trainer, you're still kind of a young trainer, so to speak, despite how you look. I can say that because I'm the other side of the camera, so it's no problem. How do you feel you're developing and progressing as a trainer now? Because this is the first, I think this is the most fighters that you've ever had under one roof that you've worked with. How does that change you as a trainer? What kind of different obstacles does that throw up for you as a trainer, and how do you develop?
Yeah, it doesn't really, because I've got Lee Wiley, got Barry Smith. Those guys help me out, and obviously as each fight, as their fights coming up, priority takes over. And yeah, it's just, you know, we just keep working hard at what we do, and fortunately the results are showing. I mean, the last since we moved into the gym, I think we've had 4 fights, 4 wins, 4 stoppages, 1 world title, 1 European title, 1 British title, and Shabazz. So got his first stoppage since his debut. So, you know, the work that we're putting in, the results are showing, and yeah, you know, of course, a big part of it is, someone asked me the other day, like, when was the last time you learned something about boxing? But every day, if I give a piece of information to a fighter and he's not quite getting it, I'm thinking, why is he not getting it? And then the next day I explain it in a different way and I see it go, click, I've just learned something there. I know how to get a piece of information across to that fighter, how he absorbs it better. Did I demonstrate it? Did I show it? Did he view it? Did he keep practicing it? Did he drill it? Did I explain it? Do you know what I mean? Did he watch someone else do it? So you're always learning in that respect.
You mentioned Lee McGregor there, of course, very impressive in his win over Karim Gurfi, picking up the European bantamweight title. Talk to me about Lee and kind of working with Lee. Obviously, I've known Lee for quite a number of years. He's very he's ambitious. He wants to get on with things. He's a real character to have around the gym, and really progressing and developing into a fantastic fighter.
Yeah, so Lee come down, and it was Lee Wiley that was like, look, obviously we kept counting, he's a tank for bantamweight, and Lee went, I think he was boxing with a little bit of a looser type of posture, and Lee Wiley said to me, what do you think about making him a little bit more compact? Help make his physicality more of a impact on his opponents in his style. So we did that, and I think there was a few people that was a bit like, don't know if that's right for him. And we worked, and there's not a bantam. I don't think there's a bantamweight in the country that could spar with Lee and do the rounds with Lee. And the performance was. The first sequence was something that we drilled. If you ask Lee, Ben told me how many times you drilled round one. Like, it would have been a point where the first 3 seconds he got something wrong. Start again. I could see he was like, ugh. But, it showed, the results show because he put the work in. So, yeah, I was really pleased with that.
Where next for him? I think I interviewed him when he was 2-0, and he said that if I could fight Noah Inoue tomorrow, I'd do it. So he is very much that type of character. Yeah. But, he's European champion now. Yeah. He's kind of knocking on the door of that fringe world level, or he's not too far away from a world title. What's the plan for him?
I think the plan is the right fights. He needs, in an ideal world, Lee's someone that, different to Joshua, not completely changed his style. We've added to his style. Lee, we have completely changed his style, so it'd be nice for him to get a 10, 12 rounds in, doing the rounds with that new style, becoming comfortable with it, and just experiencing a few things at that level with a completely new style, So I would say that's probably a bit more important for Lee than it is for Josh.
Are those fights out there for him? Because particularly without kind of jumping up massively, are those fights out there for him at bantamweight?
Yeah, I think there's a few opponents that have been spoke about. It's not my place to mention them, but they seem like the right guys for the job anyway. And they're definitely not gimmies, They're top quality fighters that are on the fringe of things themselves.
Moving on, because I'm very aware that we are somewhat strapped for time, because you have a very busy gym nowadays. It was always easy when it was just you, and I could take as much time with you as I wanted. Billy Joe Saunders versus Canelo-Alvarez, somebody you know very, very well, inside out, back to front. Billy Joe Saunders. Let's call it what it is. The deck's stacked against him. He's boxing the pound-for-pound #1 in the world. Talk to me about the fight. I'm sure you're going to be backing Billy Joe, but how difficult a fight is that for him? Is it the most difficult fight in world boxing?
It's the most difficult fight for anybody in world boxing. But do I believe that Billy Joe has the tools to? I 1,000,000% believe that. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind that he can. He's got to get everything right, and that's the important part, of course. But he goes in there and gets things right. He is capable of winning that fight. So it just boils down to preparation being right, everything being right leading up to it, staying switched on through the fight, and knowing, being a step ahead, knowing what Canelo's trying to set you up for, what he's trying to achieve from what he's doing. And I think Billy Joe will be aware of that, So I certainly believe that he's definitely capable of winning that fight, in good fashion as well.
A lot of people point to the Arislandi Lara performance, the Austin Trout performance. You know where I'm going with this. Let me finish. How different of a fighter is Canelo-Alvarez compared to that 154-pounder who struggled with Lara, who struggled with Trout?
Yeah, different ball game, like completely different ball game again. Like what I was saying about Lee McGregor, not that Lee McGregor is Canelo, but it's a completely different style now. What Canelo and the way he approached the fight and what he's trying to achieve, he's looking to achieve. He achieves it in a completely different way now to the way he did back then. It's complete, like, just people like my favourite fight to sit down and watch is Canelo and Mayweather, because the IQ in that ring was ridiculous. So I understand watching that fight to go look at the principles of what was happening and what each fighter was doing in that fight. But in terms of going, and there definitely is elements of what Floyd Mayweather did to say, look, this is how you need to go about the fight. But when you look at the way to beat Canelo is not what Lara did, not now. And it's just, you know, I wouldn't look at that and go, oh, when he did this, he had success, you know. There's principles. So what he was doing as opposed to the way he was doing it. Does that make sense? Yeah. But yeah, it's like just two different fighters from what he was to what he is.
You know Billy Joe arguably better than, well, certainly better than the vast majority of people in the sport. What do you think his mindset is going to be going in there? Because a lot of people are writing him off out of hand, saying Canelo will win the fight at a canter. You know Billy Joe's kind of mentality. He seems to be the type of person who will thrive off of that.
Yeah, like, I've seen one or two people go about, oh, for money and this, that and the other. Trust me, not interested. If it meant he was winning, he wouldn't take a penny. If it meant he could guarantee a win. I know that for a fact. So, trust me, he's going to win and he'll be in the right frame of mind. Yeah, 1,000,000%.
Okay, before I let you go and do your job, always a pleasure to pop down and see you. Let's talk about Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury. We're waiting. There's a day, TikTok, and Tuesday and Monday and what have you. First question, are we going to see the fight next?
Potentially, I think so. I think, you know, it'd be good to. I just don't see why having an interim fight at the level that those guys should be fighting at, why that would make sense and put the fight in jeopardy, in my opinion. So, you know, you don't know what could happen when you're fighting at top level. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in boxing, let alone heavyweight boxing. So, it'd be silly to do that. But, yeah.
Knowing Tyson the way you do and kind of being with him and taking him from, you know, rock bottom to, we spoke the other day about that first fight week in LA, Wilder Fury 1, which feels like an absolute age ago now. But, you know, obviously very different circumstances and where he was compared to where he is now, or off the back of the second Wilder fight. But activity going into that fight, going into the Anthony Joshua fight, if it is in July, like we're hearing it could potentially be, that'll be almost 18 months out of the ring. A concern?
Well, he's training every day again, so it's one of them, isn't it? Like, if he's keeping himself sharp, sparring, I know sparring's not fighting, but if you're keeping yourself sharp, doing the right things, like, it shouldn't be too big of a problem. I can't remember exactly how long Sugar Ray Leonard was out of the ring for before boxing Marvin Hagler, but there you go. So he was out the ring for how long before coming back and boxing Wilder the first time? I know he had a couple of comeback fights, but had to lose 10 stone on top of that. So, yeah, he's more than capable.
You've been around Billy Joe, you've been around Tyson throughout these big fights. You're not there for the Canelo fight and you're not going to be there for the AJ fight. Is there any kind of part of you that wishes that you were?
Yeah. Yeah, of course, like, more so the Billy Joe fight, if I'm honest. Not anything against Tyson, don't mean anything like that, but it's a case of, like, I've known Billy Joe, like, for such a long... Obviously, Tyson's a very good friend of mine, but Billy Joe I've known for such a long time, and I've been there with Tyson side by side for his big moment, you know, and that big, what took him into a superstar. And this is Billy Joe's opportunity to become a superstar, and I know that what a tough task it is, and I know Billy Joe boxing, his boxing, his game and his skill set like the back of my hand. So, and I know Canelo pretty well. So yeah, I would love to have been there, but you know, I'm sure that he'll still be able to go out there and get the job done, of course.
Okay, before I let you go, I want three quick predictions. First of all, this weekend, Demetrius Andrade versus Liam Williams. Who wins?
Don't know. I haven't thought about the fight, so I can't answer it.
Okay, Canelo Alvarez versus Billy Joe Saunders.
Billy Joe Saunders.
Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua.
Tyson Fury.
Ben Davison, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Cheers, mate.